Hello, everybody, and welcome back for another episode of Unpacking with Sarah, where our goal is to bridge the gap between theory and application, bringing user friendly resources right to you for free to improve your mental wellness. I'm Sarah Westbrook. I'm your host today, and I'm really excited today to be talking about how confusing our language is. In English, we tend to utilize words that mean other things, and or we misuse words because we think we know what it means, but we're wrong. And or the setting isn't correct. So today we're going to talk about positive versus negative from a mental wellness vernacular, or the language that we use in behavioral health. Alex, if you can pull up that worksheet, that would be great. Thank you so much. Alrighty, so I worked on this worksheet before the show for way too long and it still looks terrible. So just bear with me. This is the rough draft. We will be bringing you the final draft on our website here in the very near future. But we have a tendency to think of positive and negative when we're talking about behaviors or our thoughts as good or bad. And I'm here to tell you that when we are utilizing the words positive and negative in the mental wellness or the behavioral health world, we're not talking about good versus bad at all. What we're really talking about is either activation, meaning you're doing something, that would be positive, or negative, where there's a deactivation. This can also be thought of as positive, would be thought activating, adding to something that you're doing, taking action, doing something, versus negative, which would be thought stopping, taking something away, stopping an action, or doing nothing. Again, oftentimes we think, oh my goodness, doing nothing is bad, but it's really not. Sometimes doing nothing is exactly the best thing for my mental wellness and for the things that I can do. Same thing with the positive side. Oftentimes we have this misnomer where we're thinking, okay, if I don't do something, that's going to be a bad thing. But oftentimes doing something actually gets us into a great deal of trouble. Trouble. Goodness, I'm having a hard time with my words as always. Alrighty, so I created this little visual to kind of help you remember that negative means stopping. And the best thing I could think of for stopping is a traffic light. And so I put the minus sign in that traffic light. The zero in the middle means neutral, meaning we would have negative, neutral, and positive. So that's just in a math uh, equated by or demonstrated by the number zero. And then green is positive, meaning go, meaning that there is an action. And then there at the bottom, you can see that the good versus the bad is crossed out because we're not talking about good and bad. I think that the Gottmans explained this the best when they talk about asking for what you need, either with a positive need or a negative need. And they tend to say, let's try and avoid the negative needs. Now, these are not bad needs, these are asking our partner to terminate something. Or asking ourselves to terminate something, and that would be that thought stopping. So, this would look something along the lines of, if my husband and I are having an argument and his voice is raised and I feel like he's yelling at me, a negative request would be stop yelling at me, because I've asked him to take a behavior away. I've asked him to stop an action. I've asked him to thought stop or behavior stop. The problem with that is that our brain goes, blah, our fight or flight response engages, and we actually tend, that behavior that we're asking ourselves to terminate, that negative behavior that we're asking to be terminated, actually digs its heels in and gets more intense. It gets louder, it gets bigger, and we tend to ignore the negative request. Again, remember, negative request means terminating, stopping, taking something away. Versus same scenario, if I ask my partner, hey Mason, can you please lower your voice? I've asked him to do the exact same thing, but my language is positive, meaning I've asked him to take action, to do something specific. I've asked his brain to shift to a different action versus stopping in action. One of the things that you're going to hear a lot of behavioral health specialists talk about is to ask somebody to take an action or do something different. And that they're going to ask you, hey, you need to ask for what you need in a positive way. This doesn't mean good. This means asking the other person or identifying your needs, talking about the things that you can do versus the things that you want to stop doing. Again, our brain tends to disengage negative. We remove the charge. Okay, negative charge is opposite than a positive charge, and so it feels different. Our brain doesn't like that stopping or that removal. We get stuck in this world of, if you take something away from me, I'll never get it back, and therefore I must hang on to it really, really tight. Which is why if I ask my husband to stop yelling at me, his brain interprets that as, I will never be allowed to yell again. Therefore, I will not let go of this. This is the same idea of when you diet and you tell yourself, I will never eat another brownie, or I'm not going to eat a brownie for a whole month. As soon as you say that, not that negative word, your brain is like, oh my God, I'll never see another brownie for the rest of my life, and that will kill me dead. And you have that fight, flight, freeze, fawn, flop response that we've talked about in the past. Versus when I asked my husband, can you speak to me in a calmer voice? Your raised voice is influencing my feelings of fight or flight. I feel defensive rather than curious. If you lower your voice, I think I'll be able to listen and engage with you a little bit better. That positive action, or I'm really looking forward to the brownie that I'm going to eat at the end of this 3-week goal of eating clean or staying away from sugar or whatever it is. As you frame that in a positive or in an action oriented framework, that language changes the way our brain interprets the data. So your challenge for this week is, every time you catch yourself in a terminating or a negative request or thought pattern, I want you to get creative and see if you can flip that around. And I guarantee you're going to get stuck, because every client that I have gets stuck. Then they come in for a session and I flip it around on them in about 2 seconds and they look at me with a lot of frustration. I've been doing this since 2012, y'all. I've got a lot of practice. In my professional experience, I'm amazing at it. In my lived experience in real time with my spouse, sometimes I really suck at it. So I want you to know that when that fight, flight, freeze, fawn, flop sensory stuff, when you get that sensory overload and you go into fight, flight, freeze, fawn, flop, it's normal for you to revert back to asking for terminating behaviors or terminating thoughts, where we kind of thought stop. We try and control everything by stopping it. That doesn't work for us. It actually gets bigger and more intense. Whereas on the positive side, when we ask for the action, we tend to get better results and our brain calms down and we're better able to engage. So if you get stuck, please don't hesitate to reference this episode. Email me at daisygirlcommunications@gmail.com. I can give you some pointers and some tips. I really enjoy doing this. And also, you'll be able to find the finalized version of this very lopsided, I'm looking at it going, it's not center, it's not this, it's not that. We're going to clean up this worksheet for you and get it onto our website at daisygirlcommunications.com. If you or somebody you know is in crisis, please don't hesitate to call or text 988. Please choose to alive yourself. Positive action there. I love ya. So excited to be here for you to teach you these skills. Again, remember, this is for psychoeducational purposes. Take what you're learning here to your personal care providers so that you can learn how to better apply it to yourself. Thanks so much. We'll see you next week. Bye.